Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Season 1, Episode 6A, Mewberty. Oh boy, I have a lot to say about this episode, and I want to start off, right off the bat, by saying that this is going to be a controversial review. A lot of you guys are going to disagree vehemently with what I'm going to say. I want to forewarn you that I am going to be talking about sexual assault in this video. I also want to make it 100% clear that my views on this episode are probably singular to me, and I am 100% sure that what I took away from this episode is not what the creators of the show were intending me to take away from this episode. And I'm not saying that it is. It's just an instance of that kind of situation where you see something that isn't actually there, but then you can't unsee it once you've seen it. Like in your bedroom at night when you look at a desk chair and see a monster. Clearly it's not a monster and you know that, but you just can't get it out of your head. You can't unsee it. That's how I feel about this episode. The plot of this episode goes that Star has begun Mewberty, which is the Muni version of puberty. It supposedly doesn't typically last for a very long time, but it can get quite uncomfortable, and so Star and Marco want to find a way to stop it, but they are unable to, and the odd hearts that continue to form on Star's skin eventually form into a cocoon, and she pupates into a boy-crazy insect-like creature that goes around kidnapping people. Marco continues to try to help Star with the assistance of a tiny little gross wizard guy who is the index in her spellbook. But in the end, Marco realizes he has no choice but to allow nature to take its course. Star completes Mewberty and goes back to normal, the only difference being that she now has tiny insect wings on her back. Let's start with the positives in this episode. The visuals were really good in this one. I didn't like the little wizard guy. I thought he was grating, gross, and annoying. But the basic concept of the episode of Star turning into a monster-like creature over time, starting out with something as adorable as little hearts forming on her skin, but then taking that and twisting it into something sinister, the hearts becoming like a sticky web-like substance, was all very cool. Very creepy imagery. I liked it a lot for kind of the same reasons that I like the creepy imagery in shows like Gravity Falls, for example. It hit a lot of the same notes for me. This episode also introduced a character, I think her name was Jana, another female student at Marco's school. I really liked her. I'd really like to see more of her going forward. She seemed just the right kind of weird for me, personally. But at the end of the day, I didn't like this episode. I can't bring myself to like this episode. First of all, it reminds me a lot of an episode of the Teen Titans cartoon, the old Teen Titans cartoon, not the current terrible one, where the exact same plot happened. Starfire, the resident alien of the group, starts going through her people's version of puberty, where she literally pupates, but in the end only becomes a new, improved version of herself with a new ability. As far as puberty metaphors go, that one is so much better. That episode is handled so much better. First of all, it has more time to unfold. Puberty doesn't happen in a day. It just plain doesn't. It happens over a long period of time, and it's difficult for almost the entire time. Mewberty just felt too rushed. The pacing was too fast. It felt like it was over too quickly. There was barely any time to imply any consequences, to build up to any implied consequences. And so the payoff at the end that Star is still just Star didn't really hit home the way that it did in that Teen Titans episode. Also, that Teen Titans episode, leading up to Starfire discovering that she was still just herself inside that cocoon, showed her undergoing very uncomfortable changes to her body, changes that she didn't like, and having to deal with them on an emotional level. Meanwhile, in Mewberty, while changes did occur to Star's body, the ones that she was actually aware of weren't anything that went too far above and beyond the oddness that her body already exhibits. We didn't get to see her deal with any of the harsher changes in a rational way that resonated emotionally, because by the time she had become the insect creature, she had lost all reasoning. Which is actually where my biggest issue with this episode comes in, and this is the thing that I said is probably singular to me, and I'm sure is not what the creators of the show were going for. So bear with me, please. Watch to the end of the video before forming an opinion about my opinion, please. Okay, I'm going to say it. This aspect of Star's Mewberty transformation was very clearly framed as a sexual awakening. Star has never not been interested in boys since we've known her, but here she becomes boy crazy in the very traditional sense of the term. She is unable to control her actions to the point that she starts scooping people up and imprisoning them. First of all, and I speak from first-hand experience here, puberty is not always associated with uncontrollable sexual urges. That is not a universal experience for everyone. And yet this episode, which is a puberty metaphor, treats it as such a huge part of the puberty metaphor featured in this episode that it's basically the only one worth actually mentioning with vocalized words. Not only that, but because these assaults against people, they were assaults, she assaulted people, were framed as being the result of an uncontrollable sexual urge brought about by a sexual awakening, to me, and again, I stress, to me, it felt like the show was saying that if someone commits sexual assault, that they can then claim after the fact that they couldn't control themselves and that makes them exempt from consequences. Again, I am sure, 100%, that that's not what the creators of the show, that that's not what the writers of the show were going for here. But I can't unsee it at this point, and it has reflected negatively on my impression of the episode. I'm sorry that's the case, but I just can't help it. At the end of the day, this episode did have a lot good going for it, and if I had made that connection as immediately as I did, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more, and I'm really sorry if I have hurt anyone else's enjoyment of this episode. I'm not going to lie to you, though, about my feelings about it. And I'm just gonna end this review here while I'm ahead. Guys, what did you think of this episode, if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.